All right, good morning. Welcome to the renewed American dream of pursuing human achievement. Is the American dream dead? What was it anyway? Most of us think that the center of that dream was individuals having the opportunity to prosper and flourish through their own achievements, achievements that benefit and inspire anyone. That dream has been tarnished, but it can be recovered, and if so, how? And why is this at 8 o'clock in the morning? We have two excellent speakers to debate these questions. First is Edward Hudgens, who's Senior Scholar and Director of Advocacy at the Atlas Society. Previously, he worked at the Cato Institute, the Joint Economic Committee of Congress, and the Heritage Foundation. He has a PhD in political philosophy and has taught at universities in the United States and Germany. Ed has produced books on free trade, space policy, and postal service privatization. His most recent book is on the Republican Party's civil war, Will Freedom Win? Today, he will discuss renewing the American dream of pursuing human achievement. Ed?
Thanks. Okay. Hope I can get my slideshow up here. Let's see. Microphone? Am I mic'd? Nope. Okay, can I turn this on? How about that? No? How about that? Yay, okay, we got it. Okay, let's see. I'm waiting for my slideshow to come on here. Let's point the thing. Tech guys, here we go. Okay, let's see. There we go. Pursuing the American dream. Okay, let me move along here. I want to start off by saying something about what is the American dream. And I think most of you would probably have some consensus about what it is or what it was. I'm speaking in the past tense at the moment. Pursuing the American dream has always meant pursuing one's individual dreams. It's a very individualist thing, based on self-interest, based on people who want the best out of life. That's why millions of immigrants came to this country originally. It's seeking prosperity. It's not being satisfied with poverty, whether in this country or in a country of origin. It's seeking personal liberty. Again, that's why millions of people came here and continue to come here. Freedom to think, freedom to worship, freedom to create your own farm, your own business, to create your own life. It's achievement and the goal of achievement based on personal responsibility. And virtues, your taking responsibility for your life determines what you are in life. That's why this was a land of opportunity. It's recognizing that life involves risks, life involves failure. But what adults do, what true human beings do, is they pick themselves up, they learn from their mistakes, they take risks, and ultimately, hopefully, they succeed. It's pride and achievement. Now, pride is not boastful. But pride is a recognition that I deserve the best, that I'm not some low vermin, that I want the best out of life, I deserve the best out of life, and I'm going to earn it. It's a dream of hope and optimism. In Italy, I'm a half Italian, that's why I talk like this. And there's a phrase over there, discovering America, or he discovered America, meaning that you actually had the chance to succeed, and you did. And it's a dream of the government protecting your rights, protecting your liberty, not ruling you. I always like to point out what I consider would be one of the paragons of the American dream, Benjamin Franklin. He was an entrepreneur, he was an inventor, he was a scientist, he was a sage, he was a founder of the Republic, he loved liberty. This is America at its best. Now, sadly, in the last century, we've seen that dream fading. We've seen the collectivist notion of social duty rising up and infiltrating the culture. Not a responsibility to your family, not a dedication to perhaps your local community or a community to which you voluntarily belong, but some vague social duty that your goal is not to improve your own life and live your own life, but rather it's others. This is the progressive notion that we can't take care of our lives, that we need philosopher kings to rule us. It's the cultural notion that it's better to give away rather than to produce. People say, well, yes, Bill Gates, maybe he's a billionaire or multi-billionaire, but what has he given back? That's the pernicious collectivist culture that we've seen rising up in, especially in recent decades, especially under Barack Obama. It's a culture of envy and resentment. That notion that somebody owes you morphs into a morality of resentment and envy. And then you get policies of the government punishing achievement and punishing those who produce. You get the notion of unearned rewards, and you create a very cynical culture, which is what we have today. Interestingly enough, a Pew survey found that 59% of Americans today believe the American dream is unachievable, and in the younger generation, 18 to 34, 63% think it's unachievable. But I'm going to suggest that there's room for optimism. I'm going to look especially at that younger generation and say that we have in this country in the last 30 years the rise, wrong way here, the rise of a new entrepreneurial class, a class of entrepreneurial achievers. Now, we all know, of course, they almost seem like miracles of the information age. PCs, the internet, this little thing here, I'm pointing to my smartphone, has more capacity than the whole control room that put men on the moon. I actually worked in that control room, by the way, as a high school intern in 1969. I've got more computing power here and more capacities that didn't even exist back then. This is incredible. Today, we live in a world where we have immediate access to almost all information. Everything changes very, very quickly, and we're simply used to that. And we know the transformative nature of this technology, but there's a lot more coming. The information revolution has been following Moore's law for, almost 30 years now or more, that every 18 months, capacity doubles. And this is an exponential graph, by the way. This is not going up linearly. This is exponentially. You can see how fast things are changing. And these increases in technology are leading to new frontiers. 3D printing, for example, is a technique now, and a technology that's going to is going to change manufacturing in this country. You're going to be able to print your individual clothing. You're going to be able to work on your own designs for basically anything, whether it's machines, whatever. We've already seen in things like prosthetics for people who might lose a jaw or something. You can custom make it, the new jaw, the new implant, etc. There's a whole revolution coming with 3D printing that's going to affect industry and so forth. Medical devices. You see a revolution coming in medical devices. Dean Kamen, who invented the Segway, has invented an artificial arm. This is the real bionic man. This isn't science fiction anymore. The arm had to be less than 9 pounds. The fingers had to be so subtle that they could pick up a grape or a raisin without crushing them. And this is a reality now. And when they start mass producing this, you lose an arm in the war or whatever, well, don't worry, we've got a replacement. Carlos Camara has invented an X-ray machine using technology that's this big. Incredible. George Whiteside has invented a diagnostic chip, basically the size of a computer chip, that if there's somebody out in the middle of nowhere, Africa or Latin America, he's got a disease, you want to diagnose it, you can use this thing. Again, medical devices, lots of progress. Robotics and artificial intelligence, of course, our computers are, in a sense, a form of artificial intelligence, but they're reaching the point where they're not just in factories, they're also in hospitals. They're becoming to dominate our lives. Interestingly enough, there's a whole debate going on right now about whether robots are going to take over. But the point is, that's how far we have gone. Nanotechnology is fascinating. This is engineering at the molecular level. And this is Eric Drexler, one of the pioneers in nanotechnology. Of course, all of our computers, all of our smartphones involve nanotechnology, but we have a lot of exciting things coming on the horizon. Carbon nanotubes are so strong that when we can figure out how to link them together, we can efficiently and cost-effectively build literally a space elevator. We won't have to launch rockets anymore, even though I'm a big fan of Elon Musk's, because they'll be strong enough that you can build an elevator literally to the stars. Nanomedicine is fascinating, because what you can do with nanomedicine is, for example, you have Alzheimer's disease, you can put something in the brain that's going to take the place of some of the missing synapses. Or they're working on, and Google's putting a lot of money into this, by the way, nanobots that can go in, and if you have cancer, instead of having to poison your whole body and hope that the cancer dies before you do, You program the nanorobot to go just to the cancer cells, inject and either turn it off or put the poison just in that cancer cell. That's becoming a reality in the next decade or so. Genetic manipulation. Interestingly, the government said that it would take $3 billion in 3 decades to decode the human genome. Greg Venter, a private guy, did it for $300 million, did it in 1 year. And we have now, or we're getting to the point where we can have the capacity to do genetic engineering so you turn off the genes for Alzheimer's, for Parkinson's, and so forth. You can literally eliminate many of the things that are killing us. And right on the cusp of this, you might say, or the leading edge, is the notion of life extension and life enhancement, that 500 is going to be the new 70. And there's been a lot of work done on this, on life extension, where it now looks possible to extend life out into the future. And we're not talking just about you living, we're talking about your capacities being enhanced. You're not living like a 110-year-old person who's falling apart. You're living like a vibrant, healthy person. People like Ray Kurzweil think that someday you'll actually be able to download your thoughts and your whole mentality into some sort of an artificial form so you can live forever. Is this cutting edge? You're damn right it's cutting edge, but it used to be science fiction. It's now something we're going to have to deal with. The good news is that this and these entrepreneurs who are doing this are running on an ethic of achievement and entrepreneurial values. Think about what it takes for these Silicon Valley types to do what they do. First of all, they respect reason and the power of reason to change the world, a good Enlightenment value. They understand the importance of the individual. They have their own dream. They want to be the next Zuckerberg with Facebook. They want to be the next person inventing a smartphone, whatever it happens to be. They want to do the next Uber. They want to do the next Bitcoin, whatever it is. These are entrepreneurs who have their own vision. They love their work. They love the act of creation, and they require personal autonomy to do this. I say that a lot of these folks, they tend to be leftists, or they tend to be liberal. I say that they have the values of a Howard Roark, but they still don't have the politics yet of a John Galt. And that's what we have to work on. I love this quote from Steve Jobs. Your time is limited, so don't waste it living someone else's life. Don't be trapped by dogma, which is living with the results of other people's thinking. Don't let the noise of others' opinions drown out your own inner voice. And most important, have the courage to follow your own heart. Now, I would say that we've got a challenge ahead. This looks pretty optimistic, but there's a challenge. The Enlightenment brought us the notion that reason is powerful, the notion that free thought is important, the notion that each individual has dignity and that the government should protect our rights. But the Enlightenment gave rise to the Industrial Revolution, which was a challenge because it upset social norms, it upset tradition, it upset social hierarchies. It was revolutionary, and you had reactions to the Industrial Revolution. Marx, later fascists, ultra-religious conservatives. So, in other words, Enlightenment folks had to, in the 19th century and the 20th century, deal with the transformative results of the Industrial Revolution, which came from their own Enlightenment ideas. You needed a Hayek, a Mises, an Ayn Rand, and those sort of folks to come and say, we need to apply these Enlightenment principles about freedom to the 19th and 20th century. So that's the challenge, I argue, that we have today. It's going to be an even bigger challenge with these new technologies because the growth today is exponential. Instead of having 10 years to deal, a century to deal with transitions, we might have 10 years to deal with certain transitions. You take a look at how quickly new technologies penetrate the market. Telephones, it took 60 years for it to go from 10% of people using telephones to 50%. PCs, 11 years, the internet, 6 years. That's how quickly technology spreads. This is going to disrupt social norms. It's going to challenge our personal capacities. Most of us are used to the notion of we train for some job in life, and then we do it. But what happens if you're having industries and production and everything changing so quickly? Will we be able to change as individuals as quickly? What about the challenges of longevity? What happens when people start living to be 100, 120 as a routine matter? Certainly going to disrupt the Social Security system, which is broke already. And what about genetic engineering and nanotechnology when we can literally genetically engineer ourselves to be almost anything? Is there going to be a problem with us creating Frankensteins? Well, I want to end by saying that I think the meme that pulls all this together is the notion of human achievement. This is what the American dream has always been about. And I think this is what it can be in the future if we focus and frame the challenges today in terms of the values of human achievement. These are values that have to be promoted explicitly in the culture. They have to be celebrated. And I think it's only if we promote this notion of human achievement and sort of what you might call a neo or a new Enlightenment revolution that we're going to be able to restore the American dream and as individuals have a good future. I thank you for your attention, and this is what's at stake. Lee, he's going to say a few words. Hold on, Lee, he's going to say something about you.
Our next speaker is Lee Edwards, the Distinguished Fellow of Conservative Thought at the Heritage Foundation. Dr. Edwards is the author and editor of 20 books, including biographies of Ronald Reagan, Barry Goldwater, and Edwin Meese III, as well as a history of the Heritage Foundation. Edwards is also the chairman of the Victims of Communism Memorial Foundation. Edwards is an adjunct professor of politics at the Catholic University of America. He was the founding director of the Institute of Political Journalism at Georgetown University and fellow at the Institute of Politics at the John F. Kennedy School of Government at Harvard University.
Well, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. And it's a beautiful day in Las Vegas and a great day to be alive. Well, my friend Ed Hudgens says that at the center of the American dream is the idea that individuals should have the opportunity to flourish and prosper through their own achievements that will in turn benefit and inspire everyone. It's a good libertarian definition with this implied reference to the invisible hand. But it is incomplete, I suggest, because man and woman, as Adam Smith wrote in The Theory of Moral Sentiments, is more than an individual dominated by self-interest and dependent on reason. In Aristotle's phrase, man is by nature a political animal who becomes whole, not in isolation, but as a conscious, contributing, committed member of society. Well, let me offer, if I may, a conservative definition of the American dream. Citizens of this republic should have the opportunity to freely lead their lives and pursue the goals that benefit them and all of society. Now, please note the word citizens of this republic that underline the responsibility of the individual American, not just to himself, but to his family, his community, and the larger society that is America. The American dream, I suggest, is achievable only within the framework of ordered liberty. For the historian Russell Kirk, the American idea of ordered liberty can be traced to 5 cities. It comes from Jerusalem and the Hebrew perception of a moral existence under God. It includes the philosophical and self-awareness of Athens and the Greeks of antiquity. It has been nurtured by the Romans' experience of law and social organization. It was rooted in London and the guarantee of English liberty under law. And it was best articulated in Philadelphia 2 centuries and more ago, and the Declaration of Independence with these incandescent words, "We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, and they're endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness." Whatever the failings of America in this second decade of the 21st century, and there are more than a few, let's be frank about that, let us admit that ordered liberty of America has been a rare success in human history. The history of most societies, as Dr. Kirk put it, is a record of painful striving, brief success, and then decay and ruin. There have been the horrors of the Holocaust and the victims of communism, responsible for the deaths of more than 100 million victims in the 20th century. Not so in America. While our nation has been shaken from time to time by world wars, a civil war, a Great Depression and a Great Recession, riots over civil rights, and protests about civil liberties, social and cultural upheavals, the idea and the practice of ordered liberty have endured and assured our continued freedom and prosperity. To put it briefly, I do not think that America is exceptional because of its rugged individualism, but because of its unique kind of self-government. Alexis de Tocqueville wrote that by charging citizens with the administration of small affairs, one interests them in the public good and makes them see the need they constantly have for one another in order to produce it. These local freedoms, he said, bring men closer together despite the instincts that separate them, and allow citizens to govern themselves without intervention. But such government will not happen if individualism is made into a god. Certainly much has changed since Tocqueville wrote Democracy in America, but not the basic nature of man. The social philosopher Robert Risbett has written, quote, that if modern life is to be saved from the monolith of power the state has become, means must be found of restoring the kind of social initiative that springs from the groups, neighborhoods, localities, and voluntary associations with which people too plainly wish to live and indeed do live. Isolated outposts of individuals cannot mount the needed counteroffensive against the Leviathan state. As for the other theme of our panel, the pursuit of human achievement and the role of high technology and even transhumanism, let me say that as a conservative, I don't oppose the idea of change. I'm for change. But it should be prudential change, organic change, change as a consequence of a need generally felt. I'm neither a Luddite nor a neo-Luddite. I'm grateful for the bionic arm mentioned by Ed, and for penicillin, air conditioning, deodorant, particularly deodorant, right? Jet airplanes, soluble aspirin, and the computer, which Bill Buckley called the greatest invention since the Gutenberg press. But I'm against change for the sake of change. As Russell Kirk put it, hasty innovation may be a devouring conflagration rather than a torch of progress. Do we really know what the smartphone is doing to the minds of the young, or to our minds, for that matter? Ed proposes reason as life's guide. He's a good libertarian, a good objectivist, so of course he would. But even the wisest of mankind cannot live by reason alone. Isn't the elevation of reason above all things a fatal conceit? I think that Professor Hayek would agree. In his 1983 Heritage Lecture, Dr. Hayek said this: the enormous framework of human cooperation rests on the institutions of private property, on the idea of honesty, and on the family. On the family. He didn't say the individual, but the family. He said that traditional morality, quote, is vital to human survival. Well, we've been talking about the American dream, which I believe is only possible within the framework of ordered liberty. So let me conclude by asking, well, what is America's mission? Speaking as a conservative and paraphrasing Russell Kirk, I suggest it is the following: to maintain and improve a republic in which the claims of freedom and the claims of order are balanced and reconciled. It is a republic of liberty under the law, endowed with diversity and opportunity. It's a shining city on a hill, a model for future generations and for the world. Thank you.
I think we'd have time for maybe a question or two. Does anyone have one? We can't really see you, so if you have a question, you're going to have to just shout up. Okay. Is there a mic? I don't see a mic. No.
That'll kill the questions.
Just yell the question out and I'll repeat it. Okay, or here we go, real quick. He's got the mic. Yeah.
Make it real brief. It sounded like as I first heard Ed and then Lee, you were almost describing some kind of a continuum where individualism was one end of the continuism, and then I heard ordered liberty perhaps on the other. But beyond ordered liberty, I got a sense there was collectivism, so maybe it's individualism to collectivism is the continuum, and you're positing the idea that somehow, this is Lee positing the idea that ordered liberty exists in some dynamic place in between these two extremes? That's the question. Yes or no?
Okay, yeah. I mean, I think that I wouldn't put it as a continuum. I do believe that there is an order, a social order. In fact, one of the reasons I emphasize culture is that, I still think that reason has to guide your life. But I more and more understand the importance of having a culture. And one of the problems we have in this country is that we have a destructive culture. By the way, I agree also about communities. That's why I'm always posting pictures of my now 4-year-old children, okay? Family is a very important community to me, okay? But it's a community in which I have a self-interest. It's a community in which I choose to produce, obviously. So it's not that I'm necessarily disagreeing with Lee on this, but I'm saying that this is a matter that should come up maybe Tocquevillian from the bottom, not from the top, and that it has to be a culture that is reinforcing these values of achievement, of personal responsibility, and so on. And maybe we have a consensus there.
Absolutely, yeah. And that's why I'm so pleased that there's things like Freedom Fest, right? I mean, when 2,100 or 200, whatever it is, comes to here, that you guys come, this is terrific. This is a sign that there is that kind of culture and community of libertarians, objectivists, call yourself what you will. So I think that Ed is for liberty, but not totally. I'm for order, but not totally. But I think together, ordered and liberty, and that kind of balance is the thing that we're both trying to strive to encourage as best we can.
Thanks. Okay. Yeah. One more real quick, I guess.
First I want to thank you both for a high-level debate. It's great. I love it. Seems to me that where the rubber meets the road is when it comes to the conflict between the individual rights and what is for the good of the masses or the good of the public in general. Would either of you like to comment on that? So when push comes to shove, how do you decide whether you want to go with the rights of the individual or whether the public interest is the most important thing?
Well, I mean, I say that if the public interest is against the interest of the individual, the public interest be damned. I don't think that I think it's a misconception of what the public interest is. If you have a situation in which I'm in a society that's supposed to nurture my flourishing, by protecting my rights and having a culture that I think maybe Lee and I probably agree more than we disagree on, the bad parts of community comes when somebody decides, hey, I want to use the government to impose my will or my view or my vision on other people. So I disagree that there's some kind of a conflict between the public interest and private interest. I see them in harmony, and that's one of the, in my book, The Republican Party Civil War, which you can take a look at out here, I have a chapter on seizing the moral high ground. And one of the things I say, I think it's my 6th point, is how we, people who are libertarians, what I consider responsible conservatives and so forth, seize the moral high ground, as we say, we believe in a harmony of interests, in a free society. The other guys, the control freaks, the paternalists, basically see people as, it really is a Hobbesian situation where somebody is going to be the ruler and somebody is going to be the serf. And that's the sort of thing that I oppose.
When it comes to individual rights, I'm with Barry Goldwater.
My hero.
And Barry Goldwater once said that any government big enough to give you everything you want is big enough to take away everything you have.
Yeah. We have time for one more. They haven't
And we
given us
need a
the
few
hook
more
yet.
politicians like Barry Goldwater, and I can put a plug
Here,
in
here.
for my book, which is here. If you want to come to the book table, I'll be happy to sign copies of it for you. But we need libertarian candidates like Barry Goldwater in today's world.
Here, here. We'll do one more quick question, then I think we probably have to get off.
I have a follow-up thought. on
Looking for the hook.
Yeah.
For the first time in human history, in the American Constitution and Declaration of Independence, we enshrined individual rights. And I would suggest that that is really the essence of what makes America different.
Yep. No
Thank
argument
you.
there.
Right. Yeah.
No argument there.
Why don't we-
Okay. Well, since we got one more real quick, and then we'll get off.
Okay, my question is fairly simple. I see that we agree on either ordered liberty or limited liberty. And the problem that bothers me is that if we have some form of governance, and we have some people who are in a governing position, how do we keep them from taking our liberty away from us in the sense that we recognize those who govern as having an authority over us? How do we keep liberty from slipping away from us by limiting this business of delegating authority to
Well,
others?
I think it's a wonderful question. I think it really comes down to leadership, doesn't it? It comes down to having the right kind of people who are going to protect our interests. It's going to come down to people like Barry Goldwater, who say, as I said, that we cannot continue to have this government taking away rights after rights. We need candidates. We need people who will say, I did not come to Washington to pass laws, but to repeal laws.
Yeah. And I'll end by saying, and this is where we also have to have a cultural revolution. That's why I was talking about these values, not just the political regime, because ultimately politicians are followers. Politicians tend to be wimps, except for people like Goldwater and Reagan, our heroes. And that's why it's important to change the culture, because then the politicians will follow on. Can you imagine? Let me give you my final little thought here. I argue that we are all creators, we're all achievers, whether we're nurturing a child to maturity or a business to profitability, whether we're writing a song or a poem or a dissertation or a business plan, whether we're laying the bricks to a building or designing the building or arranging for its finance. These are our creations which we should love. Imagine if every citizen loved their creations the way they loved their life and they loved their children. What would happen if somebody tried to molest my beautiful children? I'd probably pull their heart out through their chest. Now, imagine a culture in which everybody thinks of their own life that way, as theirs, that they love, and that nobody had better molest. Do you think a politician would dare come before you with the kind of proposals they have if that's what everybody in the culture thinks? I think not. So that's why we have to have a cultural revolution. Thank you for your interest, and both of us will be around. Lee?
And you all are creating that culture.
Here, here.
By being here this weekend, you're creating that culture. God bless you.
Thank you.